This is the Reins Daily Podcast, and my second guest is Damian Strigens.
I was brought up in kind of a religious household. I was,
me too.
Catholic. It was, kind of the fear of God kind of instilled in you. You were like,
Sure.
they were,
Sure.
they were kind of protective, and I think maybe a little bit of that was sort of like, kind of just sort of inspired me to kind of break out a little bit. And
Right.
maybe, I don't know, act out a little bit
Yeah.
when you were getting into your punk rock bands and stuff. They were always really supportive. I think my dad at a young age, he was into like rock and roll and, Buddy Holly. I just went and took him to the Buddy Holly thing out in, where they did this little play. It was so great. But he was into Elvis. He was into the Buddy Holly. He was into Roy Orbison and all those like greats. And who were all kind of rebels. I mean, Johnny Cash and Elvis and all those guys were kind of rebels. And you see old photos of my dad. He was kind of a little greaser, and, then growing up, a lot, these sort of conservative. You go through the 70s and the early 80s and the sort of going to a Catholic grade school. And not a lot of people know this, I went to a seminary for my first year of high school.
Wow.
St. Lawrence Seminary. You know what I learned the most at St. Lawrence Seminary? I learned about the Buzzcocks, the Jam, the Kinks, the bands that keep going. Punk rock, rock and roll.
Do you think you went further towards the music area almost to solidify that you were your own person? And you could be your own person and not how you grew up?
I was. It wasn't like a reaction. It wasn't like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to rebel. I'm going to be a rebel. It was just a natural thing. It was just like, it wasn't out of rebellion. It was out of like looking over the horizon, looking through these windows of like, what's in here? What's in there? Going into a record, going into Ludwig van Eer, which then turned into Atomic Records, paging through all of the record stores and just going, whoa.
Yeah.
That looks wild. that looks dangerous, or that looks like something that might
Upset my mother.
upset my mom. I mean, I remember when I moved out and then moved back home. I remember, and this is funny, and this is a true story. She walked in, and I was already fully into hardcore and in punk rock and stuff. And I think I had MDC or something, Multi-Death Corporation, Millions of Dead Cops.
Yeah.
Die Kreuzen, their first album. I was playing in my room, and my mom came in and she said, "That sounds like the devil." Danny, you sound like the devil, buddy. I know exactly. They said the same thing about that guy. We're looking at Elvis right now on the wall. But maybe it did. Maybe Danny did. That was all that early stuff was.
The world's a better place because you went that way. So.
Exactly. And look at Nick Cave now. He's like this, the master of his craft, this crooning. But it's funny. Betty and I went and saw Nick Cave do a conversation thing, a night of conversation, where it was sort of like he asked questions of the audience. And, and you think about, wow, Release the Bats. When I heard that, it sounded like it's just this hellfire. I mean, it was just like, who is this crazy vampire / Iggy Pop? Or, it was like the Stooges meets, I don't even know. I mean, you really can't put a finger on what the birthday party was, but it was just out there and awesome. And now what Nick Cave is doing, and I mean, his whole musical journey, he's one of just a huge fan.
How long have you been in Milwaukee playing music and being a part of the local music community and everything?
Well, I started playing music in Milwaukee, and I want to say it was end of 84, early 85. That's the thing about MSC, and that's what really got me kind of hooked to it, or hooked into the sort of tapped into the local music scene, is because that when I listened to WMSC, they always played local stuff as well. I think it was the Monk of Punk that played. Had a show, and he was actually, I think he was a professor at Marquette, but by day, and then by night he was the Monk of Punk, professor by day, Monk of Punk by night. So I remember listening to, we were listening. Me and my buddies were into the Who and classic rock, whatever. I mean, it was just like all the stuff that we grew up with, Rush and prog rock and classic rock, like the Who and Zeppelin and things like that, and of course the Beatles. They were the cornerstone, but. I remember listening to WMSC in early 80s, 82, 83, my buddy Neil and I. And that really kind of kicked the door open to the possibility of taking our little garage band that would just play Who and Clash covers, and go, okay, well, maybe there's something beyond that, and maybe I could actually play an instrument in front of people that, and this isn't just, instead of just doing it for you and your friends, which was fine.
Sure.
That's kind of fun.
Yep.
But MSC really kind of, just the fact that there was other types of music out there and it was the sort of DIY thing. I remember the tapes. I would tape the shows, Killing Joke, The Birthday Party, which was Nick Cave's band with Roland S. Howard. Wow. But he would play Sacred Order and play De Kreutzen and the Oil Tasters and these bands that I was just like, and as far as I was concerned, him playing back-to-back TSOL, Joy Division, Sacred Order, De Kreutzen, whatever, Couch Potatoes, which became Couch Flambeau.
Yeah.
All of these bands, it didn't, local or not, it was something I was really into. I was just drawn to it. So they all, I think it was like, it was Monk of Punk, Mort to Hump, Paul Host. Yeah, Paul Host, Mort to Hump, Paul Host. All of those DJs always played local stuff as well as national stuff. So it was wide open. And I would tape the shows. And so when I saw these bands listed, I would run down there and check them out. And clubs like Zach's and Irene J's, Nico's, and Teddy's before it was Shankall, and sneak in. I was 17, 18 years old, right when the drinking age changed. So right around that time, I used to sneak in, or else, I had a fake ID and it was naughty. And it was punk rock and kind of, there was sort of a little danger to it, a little bit of, you had to go out there and find it. And so, I going down to the east side and making friends down there, just a senior year in high school and getting out of high school and just kind of this breaking away. And then I found myself in punk rock bands. Sacred Order was my first band. I was, just was with myself and Don and Beezer. And there was a small little community that was, skateboards and punk rock. And
as being a musician, I think about when I started, and you've probably gone through this, like, how long will I keep doing it? And then I look at my future, and I'm in my 50s or even 60s or whatever. And what does that look like for me musically? What sparked you to begin with, and is that still around? That same thing?
That's a great question, because the same thing that sparked me when my aunt gifted me the Rolling Stones Hot Rocks when I was 6. 5, I don't know, 6, and the White Album, all those early records.
Yeah.
That was the game changer. That was the thing that kind of sparked it all. You don't lose that. It doesn't go away. That's something that will be with you forever. And
what made you want to create it, though?
What made you want to create it?
Yeah. What was your first memory where you're like, I have to do this myself?
Yeah, I think the ability to actually go beyond, here are my heroes making music, and the ability to that DIY, that notion that this is possible. And I think that sort of independent music, punk rock, whatever you want to call it, the fact that it allowed you to sort of get a guitar, start making some noise with some buddies and create and do your own thing, craft a tune. Whether it's a folk song, something pretty, or something just aggressive, it just never went away. It wasn't something that I looked at and said, well, I'm done trying to create, or half the fun is coming up with something new and redrawing something old, maybe. I don't know.
How does it make you feel when you create?
That's a good question too, because there's this sort of subtle euphoria that when you get this sort of aha moment of, even if it's when you're putting something together in GarageBand or just demoing something, and there's like a little drone that happens, and then there's this harmony that starts to kind of flutter around, and you're like, I didn't expect that to happen, and that's really cool. Hold on a second, I'm gonna get my 6-string bass out and do this little thing on top of that. Okay, now it needs some, I don't know what it needs, maybe some percussion, I don't know. But that's really, really, how does it make you feel? Of course, it makes you feel like when you're painting, it's not like, oh, I've got it. It's more like, that's cool. What else is out there? You know, and that's why hours can be lost.
Right.
But that's where it comes from. You know, I mean, you got to put the time in. I mean, I've never been able to kind of go and fire up the computer or even sit down with a guitar and go, well, just bang out a little, a little
ditty.
A little ditty. You know, it takes, you got to put the time in, and sometimes it takes, a few minutes. I remember reading something where Paul Westberg said he came home from the bar, and on the bar napkin were the lyrics. I think it was Alex Chilton or something like that.
Yeah.
And there it is on a bar napkin.
Yeah.
He's got, I'm pretty sure it was Alex Chilton, one of the classic Replacement songs. We're on a bar napkin, and he just sort of came home after hours and hit the tape and hit the record button, and the germ of the idea was already there. The sort of like the nugget was already there. Right. And of course, the band makes it something incredible. But that takes time, though. I mean, generally, for the most part, it takes. You got to put the time in. Yeah.
Maybe it's the journey to get somewhere musically, like a Euphoria or a Final Point. Like, it sounds like you enjoy the journey of going through the forest of sounds to see what's at the end.
Yeah, the journey is always the thing. Because that's where the discoveries are made, and that's where you got to take a leap of faith, and sometimes you fail. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Fine. You learn, and you like, sometimes that's why I like live recordings. I love listening to the failures. I love listening to the oopses, and listening to the unedited. The Who Live at Leeds is one of my favorite live records of all time. Probably one of my favorite records of all time, just because on side 2, that long extended jam after My Generation, where they just kind of just get out there, all those little like weird little off notes and little fills that Moon does. And it's just, to me, it's endlessly you always hear something different in it, and it's cool.
I gotta say that it makes me optimistic and happy and hopeful to see someone like yourself doing it for so long and still getting your gratitude out of it. Like, that makes me feel like it may be okay.
Maybe there was a time in my 20s when I said, I'll do this until blank.
Right.
I'll do this until I'm 45. Yeah. I don't want to be that geezer going,
sure.
Well, come and see my band.
We were quite ignorant then, though.
But you know what? You realize after right. And but you just think rock and roll is just, it's a young man's game, and I'd be a fool to kind of just keep chugging away after 50. But no, I'm a perpetual 17-year-old.
Right.
I'll always have a studio downstairs making music, whatever it is, and just kind of trying to make sounds and have fun. I mean, Wednesday nights we have Dry House Ruins, which is Jim Warshall, myself, Jeff Mitchell, sometimes Ben Derrickson.
Sure.
And we get out there for about 2 hours, and it's therapy. Why would why would I turn that off? Mm-hmm. There's no drug like that. There's there's no prescription. Mm-hmm. If there was, man, the pharmaceutical companies, they'd find a way to make a lot of money. They would. They would. But it doesn't exist. You got to make it, and you can do it, and it's just fantastic. And if you're able to kind of really allow yourself to get out there.
Yeah.
But it's just two sides of it. The Dry House Ruins is like that sort of just get into the zone and get way out there. And then, Testarosa's, it's more traditional songs, but, you take from all those different influences, hopefully.
So when you're creating music, and obviously we both know there's not really much money involved in making original music.
Correct.
So then you have to, but you still want like a family or a house and kids or whatever, but you don't want to give up the music.
Yeah.
It seems like it takes even more drive to keep it alive because you have so much less energy after taking care of everything else on top of it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Our drummer, Bill, the drummer of Testarossa, he'll come to rehearsal after he works in construction. He works in, carpentry, and he builds stuff. Sometimes it's, 11-hour days. He'll come to rehearsal completely covered in sawdust and dirt. And after 3 songs, he's just like aching, just like a broken man. You're like, dude, are you okay? And he's like, I need get another beer. I'm like, you got it, buddy. Hold on a second. And I give him another beer, and he's just wiped out. And it's because it's like you're coming at this, and this is your kind of reward after a long, hard day. And I think he's even said, he's like, this is my reward after that, it takes a lot out of you to get it. But I think your question is, there's not a lot of money in making music as sort of an art form. If you're just going to do your own thing and craft your own songs and make original music, man, it is difficult. It's difficult. So
oftentimes thankless.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it takes a lot of work, and you just got to see it through. And if it's a part of you and you're, it's just, it just becomes who you are. And you just don't even question it after a while.
You're a human being. You're a very positive human being. But just like everyone else, I'm sure you get to a point where you're like, I just can't, I don't want to right now. What is the thought that pushes you over the edge to get it done?
Yeah. Or going to, or having to make a recording, or a crappy gig where that you somehow got roped into opening up for a band that's kind of like, why are we even playing this stupid thing? Oh my gosh, we got to bring all of our gear for this thing, and we're playing it, and there's going to be probably 14 people here.
Yeah.
And then you've got a little bit of a bug.
Right.
Maybe you got a little cold or something like that. Boy, I tell you, that couch looks really good with your dogs. And you're just hanging out at home. Instead, here comes the sleet and
you
the
convinced
snow
me.
and the slush and all that stuff outside. And you got to go and play. You're reminded when you do it, even if the people aren't, even if the response isn't there, even if it's like, whatever, it's like people are indifferent. Yeah. That there's going to be another one. There'll be more. And it's really weird. Sometimes they're almost like little rehearsals for, and you have even if it's like the performance itself isn't like revealing anything new. Oftentimes it is. There's sometimes you're like, oh wow, remember that jam we did in the middle of that? We kind of broke out, and then we did that sort of Floydy weird bit in the middle. We did that up in Sheboygan at that crappy little bar. Remember that? Oh yeah. Let's do that more. And that becomes a new part of the song. And you kind of found it in an unexpected place, in a place where it was just like, oh God, I hated that gig. I know, but we found something there. It's the, little things are going to come out of that. Not always. And maybe it's not even the performance. Maybe it's the conversation you had at the restaurant before with your people that you're making the music with that allow you to kind of go, yeah, I'm really glad we did this.
That's something that I often think about. And what it is I feel like you always grow and learn more about yourself when you go towards the uncomfortable.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's almost what you're doing there, is you're going towards the uncomfortable, but these other things are happening, which allows you and your band to grow together.
I mean, it sounds like a successory, it's like, you're not going to learn anything. We've read those types of things, those little memes that say, I'm not going to get anything out of going down the same path. I'm only going to learn from the mistakes. Rocker Pat.
Yes, Rocker Pat.
Rocker Pat. Yeah. Oh no, Rocker Pat. Yeah, Rocker Pat. Yeah. I mean, he's. I remember him at the Globe. I would always tell Pat. I'd say, and we just call him Rocker.
Yeah.
And the reason, I don't know why, I don't know where his name came from, but I'm always going to think it's because he'd give that kick drum, he'd make it sound like Whitesnake. Rocker, can you just make it sound like a kick drum? like a mallet hitting a kick, just like kind of against your, beating against your chest a little bit, just nice and tight and boom. Sure, no problem. You mean like this? Whoa.
Fine.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, that sounds great. It sounds like we're at the Mad Planet. Thanks, Pat.
All right.
No,
Well,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for this. I
You
can't wait
bet.
to look forward to listen to it.
Yeah, it was fun to make. Cool.
Anything else you want to say? We
Yeah,
got
thank you. Thank you for doing this.